Every 4 years, whoever loses blames the Electoral College. Whoever loses the presidency blames the Electoral College. And, there's all this thing about doing away with the Electoral College. And that may not be the best idea you ever had. How does the Electoral College work? And the answer is that states get, by population, a certain number of electoral votes. So a big state like California gets 52 electoral votes based on population. A state like North Dakota gets 1. And so, California obviously is 52 times the power that North Dakota has. Now, each state also gets 2 votes just for being a state. So California gets 2 votes, North Dakota gets 2 votes. And now for North Dakota and other states like North Dakota with little small populations, that's really important because it triples their power. They go from 1 vote to 3. Okay, that's not minor, and it's important to them. From the point of view of California, though, if you take the 39 states that are small, basically their votes only reduce California's strength by 0.7%, not even by 1%, because, of course, the populous states just get so many electoral votes. So, as a result, while the small states gain some, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, the big states don't actually lose a whole lot. And if you just take a look at this, the California, 54 votes out on the West Coast, Texas down on the Gulf of Mexico, 40 votes, Florida, 30 votes, New York, 28 votes, Pennsylvania, 19 votes, New Jersey, 14 votes. I mean, and then the Great Lakes states. So essentially, there's a U of population across the United States. Now, if you're a smart politician, and you want dumb politicians, if you're a smart politician, that's where you're going to campaign because this is where the votes are. Okay, and if you do away with those 2 extra votes that the flyover states get, then they lose 78 electoral votes. They lose the power of those 78 votes, and basically they become non-entities. And so as a result, I mean, if you just take a look at this, these are the 11 states, and I'm not making this up, that constitute a majority in the United States. So as a result, again, if you're a smart politician, and who wants dumb politicians, if you're a smart politician, this is where you're going to campaign. If you're running for the presidency, this is where you shape your issues. This is where you shape your policies. This is where you appeal to specific groups, hopefully large specific groups, with the things they want to hear. Do you care what happens in Montana? No. Do you care what happens in Kansas? No. And so who gets ignored if there is no electoral college? And the answer to that is wheat farmers in North Dakota. They're screwed. Nobody cares what happens to wheat farmers in North Dakota. No, I shouldn't say that. No presidential candidates are going to care about what happens to wheat farmers in North Dakota. How about African American farmers in Alabama? Take away their 2 votes. Why don't you? Okay. So, farmers make up only about 2% of the population. Not a lot of farmers. African American farmers make up a tiny part of that. And so what you're about to do is you're about to take away the power that they have. If it's just one person putting, vote in the ballot box, these folks can put but there's not enough of them to attract the attention of politicians. The shrimpers in Louisiana, for goodness sakes. Louisiana is a small state. New Orleans is not a very big city. Guess what? These folks just disappear. They just don't count from the point of view of politicians trying to win the presidency. And that's really important. Mexican Americans in New Mexico. New Mexico has 5 electoral votes. But guess what? It's a big state, not heavily populated. And spread out. And no sane politician, and sane politicians as well as smart ones, no sane politician is going to campaign in New Mexico or pay much attention to the needs of New Mexico because it doesn't pay them. The amount of investment or the time you have to invest and resource you have to invest to campaign in New Mexico is tremendous. And for what? A handful of votes? That's not going to happen. How about women in Wyoming? Wyoming women, first state to give women the vote back in 1869. Wyoming has about 550,000 people. That's smaller than, a borough in New York City. Probably there are precincts in Philadelphia which almost have that many votes. I don't know if they're live votes, but But so what are you going to do? You're going to take away their vote? That's essentially what you're going to do. You're going to disenfranchise them a second time. And by the way, you may notice that this woman is a American Indian. Well, guess what? American Indians live in large numbers in just those states which are going to lose if you take away their electoral votes. And you're talking about places like South Dakota, which has a large American Indian population, Wyoming, North Dakota, Nebraska, states like that. They're essentially, you have just vaporized the American Indian vote, which they won in the 1920s, shortly after women won the national vote. So what are you going to do? You're going to disenfranchise both women in Wyoming and American Indians in Wyoming? I don't think this is a good idea, but that's what you're going to do. And so as a result, the pig farmers in western Nebraska and the woodsmen of Maine and the coal miners of West Virginia, there's not enough of them. So people are not going to, presidential candidates are not going to go out of their way to court these folk. And they're going to resent it, frankly. One day you're part of the system because you've got the electoral votes, and the next day they do away with the Electoral College, and nobody cares what happens to you. Oh, maybe they care in a vague sense, but politicians want votes, and they're going over where the votes are, and I can guarantee you the votes are not with the pig farmers of Nebraska. And so in a country where all citizens are supposed to be empowered through a broad array of rights, democracy has to mean more than just the votes and only the votes of a raw majority. Majorities can and do ignore minorities. That's what the Civil Rights era was all about. Majorities can, if they so desire, screw over, harm, ignore minorities if it's a straight up and down vote through the ballot box and not through the Electoral College. The majority can just ignore the minority. And in this country, that basically means that dumping the Electoral College would effectively pull rural groups away from meaningful participation. This would be the largest and most effective disenfranchisement of people since the initiation of Jim Crow down south after the Civil War. Is this really a model you want to follow, where you treat people who live in the wrong places the way Jim Crow treated people? Is this really what you want to do? I can think this is just it's a horrendous idea, and it's one that is simply nonsensical. And for those who say, well, the days of Jim Crow are gone, you take away the power of people to vote in presidential election and watch what happens. Watch who doesn't get noticed in Washington, D.C. Now, this is a remarkably bad idea, and it's something that people need to really hear about. And frankly, you're not going to get the votes to do this. no state legislature is going to commit suicide by essentially agreeing, no small state legislature is going to commit suicide by agreeing to let the big states do whatever they want to do. And that's what a vote to do away with the Electoral College would mean. So it's a horrible idea, and it's one which I hope never comes to fruition. Everybody take care out there. Stay healthy. And, like any YouTuber, I want you to subscribe. I think we do good videos on this channel. I think we talk about good things, and frankly, I want to continue doing it. And if you subscribe, if you give us some likes, that would be really nice. Anyway, take care, and we'll see you on our next video. Bye bye.